All right, we've got a second accuser against Brett Kavanaugh. It's from the New Yorker. Ronan Farrow, Jane Mayer just wrote this story just a little while earlier tonight, and this could be devastating. There's some chance he's done. So let me give you the details, and then obviously we'll see how it plays out throughout the week. And thank you to all of you, by the way, who support independent media and what the Young Turks do. tyt.com/join to become a member and get all of our shows anytime you want. Okay, so it's a woman named Deborah Ramirez. They went to Yale together. It was freshman year. They were playing a drinking game, according to her, and she got very intoxicated. I'm going to come back to that point later because it's important. It cuts in two different directions, as I'll explain. And the first part is clear as to which direction it cuts. She says her memory of the night is not great. That's why she was reluctant to come forward. And she says that the night began with playing a drinking game, a very, very normal freshman year of college. And then there was plenty of joking around, super normal. And then apparently one of the classmates took out a plastic penis as a gag. Okay, it is what it is. And then she says at one point she was incredibly intoxicated and she was on the floor, and Kavanaugh took out his penis and put it next to her face. That's bad. And she had to push him away and accidentally touched his penis while doing so. She's a raised devout Catholic. She was, embarrassed, humiliated, and that story apparently got around the floor. In fact, she says that someone shouted out at that point down the hallway because they were in the dorms. She says she remembers the full name being used for whatever reason at that time. There's something along the lines of Brett Kavanaugh just put his penis in Deborah's face. Okay. So these are all uncomfortable things to talk about, obviously, but in the context of this confirmation process for a Supreme Court justice and given the previous allegations, it's necessary. So now, is it credible? That's what, of course, everybody's going to try to judge and determine here, and it's very difficult, and it's from 35 years ago, etc. So what did the New Yorker do in reporting this story? They reached out to all the people they could that were their classmates, and some of them clearly remember that story, so that's very important. Some of them do not remember that story at all, including a woman who says that she was really good friends with Deborah Ramirez and says, well, I would have heard that story if I at the time, if it had happened. Now, I didn't hear the story. Logically, doesn't mean much, right? The story could have happened, and you just didn't happen to hear about it. You're close to her. All right, that's a little bit more indicative. But the people who are saying that they definitely heard the story, why would they make it up? One of them is a CEO for a successful company. And says Deborah was a really innocent girl, and sometimes the guys like to try to get her drunk in particular, etc. And that he had heard the story, and so the ones saying they heard the story are the ones that I think are more clear evidence than the ones saying, well, I don't know, I didn't hear it. It doesn't mean it didn't happen, right? So there's one male classmate who says he is 100% sure that he heard the story and that it was Brett Kavanaugh. So take it for what it's worth. And by the way, you might hear a story and it might be a rumor, or it might have got told to you in a way that later proved to be exaggeration or not exactly how it happened. I'm just trying to give you all the context and so that you guys know, and you could read the New Yorker piece for yourself, obviously. But now we're all put in this awkward position of trying to weigh the relative credibility of these folks many, many years later and today. You have to look at all the evidence. And again, why would she make it up? She did not come forward initially, but apparently the story was circulating about Yale through Yale classmates. And then it got to some Democrats, and then now you want to get mad at Democrats. That's fine, because they started to try to investigate this, and then the reporters got a hold of it. And so at some point, Deborah Ramirez realized that they were going to come and ask her. And so she said, I'm super hesitant to come forward because, I had been drinking that night heavily, and there are gaps in my memory as to the different things that might have happened that night. But, you guys are asking me, and yes, this is my recollection of what happened. Okay. Now, all of the people that the New Yorker talked to said from back then, said Deborah Ramirez had a reputation for being incredibly honest. I mean, they made a point of it. Even the people who didn't hear the story said, yeah, she was known for being almost unusually honest. Okay. So obviously that's also relevant. Apparently, there's more details about what used to go on at Georgetown Prep, and so it relates to this story because of, again, trying to get women intoxicated to take advantage of them. They used to apparently concoct this thing called what they called jungle juice. It's a combination of heavy alcohol with Hawaiian punch, and they would try to get different girls drunk one at a time with many guys present at once. Those are the stories that are going around about Georgetown Prep and his Kavanaugh's days back then. So will there be more stories? I don't know. But all of this is leading to a context that is not good. And given all the different folks talking about it, it is now seeming more and more likely that there were some things that happened related to Kavanaugh that are deeply troubling. Okay. And so finally, let me come back to the last thing that one of the things I mentioned in the beginning, which is why mention she's so intoxicated and doesn't remember some parts of it. Now think about it. If she was making it up, why would she say that? So that immediately puts her credibility into doubt. It led me to thinking about all the different classmates saying she was extraordinarily honest. So it might be her saying, hey, look, you're asking me, I'm telling you that this is what happened, but I got to give you these caveats that are really important about my state of intoxication, etc. To me, that gives her a lot more credibility, because if you're going to make up a story, you wouldn't say, I'm not positive and I was really drunk. You would say, I'm sure, and this is what happened, right? If it was some sort of political hatchet job. So now Ford, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, the original accuser, was at a high school party, and she said Mike Judge was in the room. Mike Judge is a good friend of Brett Kavanaugh. Why would she put a witness in the room that is likely to back him up, right or wrong? That gives her, in my mind, more credibility. In this case, again, Deborah Ramirez creates a situation where people can question her credibility because of the intoxication, but she volunteers that information. To me, that gives her more credibility. So now with these things piling up, I think that he could be in a world of trouble here. So we'll have to see how next week goes, and I think the more stories that come out, another interesting thing will happen, which is that my guess is Republicans will get angrier, and then they will start to say more outrageous things. That's my sense of how this will go. They seem even, again, tonight, just as the story broke, they seemed angrier and angrier online. So, oh boy, batten down the hatches for what they're about to do in the next week. And we'll cover all of this and give you all the updates as we have them, obviously on the live show. That's Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on tyt.com/live. And again, of course, you can get all of our shows anytime you want by becoming a member at tyt.com/join. Thank you, guys.